everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Awesome. Hope everybody's enjoying this great weather. It's great to see everybody. And thank you so much, Council, for making yourselves available for this special meeting to make sure that we get out the CARES Act money. We heard you loud and clear when we were preparing for the first distribution of CARES Act money, and we were talking about how that was going to happen. We heard the council loud and clear that we wanted to do everything we could to disperse these funds. And so we are in the process now of I've actually been signing the congratulatory letters for phase 1. And now we're going to have a presentation on phase 2, which we think actually, in order to be able to be more equitable and to get more people and to assist as many people as possible, there are some corrections or additions and adjustments to be made. But actually, frankly, one of the main reasons was just to have another meeting. We could say goodbye to our beloved colleague, Mark Kopeng, before he's out the door. So more on that later. Welcome, everybody. And let's go ahead. We're going to go with a staff report from Tim Johnson, the hardest working man in government, our economic development director, citizen. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of people. I got to tell you, Tim, there's a lot of people going for that title these days. But I think you still got the belt. Then we'll have citizen comment for about 3 minutes each, and then council discussion and action. With that, I will turn it over to Mr. Johnson. Go.
Thanks, Mayor. We'll get this up and running here shortly. Just bear with me. Okay, so what you have in front of you is our efforts to go to round 2. We are in the midst of finishing up round 1. Contracts are getting ready to go out. They've been processed, and we're headed the right direction on this. So under the round 2 effort is to continue our deployment of the grant program. Again, the total amount is not to exceed $2 million in money to be deployed. This would involve the approval of $1 million for round 2. Accordingly, assistance to businesses that employ 10 or less employees. Awards would be similar to that of round 1, 500 grants at $1,000 and 250 grants at $2,000. Approval of budget not to exceed $70,000 for this round is identified for a total of $140,000. And I might add that we are well below that in round 1, and I suspect that that will be the case with round 2 as well. And then approve additional requirement for eligibilities or requirements for eligibility. I'll run you through that in a moment. So if you recall, under the Small Business Assistance Grant Program, primarily the key elements were to be domiciled in Federal Way, possess a Federal Way business license, must have been in business 1 year prior to 2020. I want to share this with you. That is key because so many of our counterparts, cities in South King County, I've seen as many as 3 years that they had to be in business. So I think we've done a fair and equitable job on that. Must be current on all taxes and government fees. No more than 10 employees, that's full-time equivalent per business. Annual revenues of business cannot exceed $1.5 million gross on an annualized basis. A couple elements that we wanted to add for round 2 on eligibility. First and foremost, businesses that applied and received grant in round 1 are not eligible for round 2. Continue to get the money access to businesses that receive state and federal assistance are available to apply in round 2, although priority will be given to those that have not received state or federal funding. We're estimating that there were well over 300 people, 300 businesses, specifically brick and mortar, that did receive the Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Disaster Loan Program, as well as Main Street and SBA forgiveness. So there's quite a few folks out there that have taken advantage of the existing state and federal programming. The next one is priority to minority and women businesses. Recall when we did round one, the state did not have an answer for us on that. They did not have an answer. They did and do now, and they said that we could do that. So that has been provided on that. In addition, staff also identified a couple other things that we just wanted to clear up for the council on this. That you could not currently be in bankruptcy. I think it's important that you're not. The other element that I think we did not see, but we did covering it in this round, have no owner, officer, partner, or principal actor of the business who is currently employed by the city or who is an immediate family member, spouse, sibling of a current city employee can apply. And then also must be a for-profit business. The last one on this, and it's kind of important for us because we do have a couple vendors for the city at Celebration Park. If closed due to government mandates, the business intends to reopen when allowed under Washington's Safe Start plan. They can apply for the program. And we learned that and only would learn that from round one. So that was a really good exercise in our ability to be able to understand that. And I think that that's one that's very important for us as we move forward. And we may find other businesses as such that are still not able to open, but want to as well. And in my contact with my peers and other economic development organizations throughout the county, they're running up against that question too as well. In the terms of expediting this, we'd like to deploy and open round two starting August 1 with a timeline for applications through the 19th. Again, that would give us a couple days afterwards to ensure the fact, as we did in round one, to go that extra mile to help everybody with any element that they had left outstanding in their application. And in round one, that was specifically making sure that those business licenses reflected the most up-to-date information, and they had that data tried and true, and that worked out very well, and everyone was very appreciative. Let me just conclude by saying this: if there is any leftover money when we're done with rounds one and rounds two, staff would like to make a recommendation to come back to you and have a conversation as it relates to looking at what you want to do with any excess dollars that are left over. Maybe they specifically can be used for other programs as identified within the state contract with us, and specifically maybe having a major impact on another sector of our economy. So I think that's worthy of looking at. Again, our numbers were in the we're below where we expected. Our gross numbers were in the 600s. There was a situation where we were having to look at the elimination of about 130 because they did receive state and federal funds, and that was in the instructions that if you had received state and federal funds, you were not eligible for round one. So in that regard, we will be left with some money moving forward. If similar amount of numbers come in, we'll still be left with a leftover at the end of this program. And if that should happen, we'd like to have the opportunity to come back to council president and the council and have a further conversation and direction as to where you would like to go. Mayor, did I leave anything out that you wanted to address to the council this evening, sir?
I don't believe so, Tim. I would just note that we are looking at maybe a couple $100,000 left over in phase one, and could be the same in phase two. And I think instead of spending all the way up to, or attempting to spend all the way up to the $2.5 million figure, we are, obviously we're getting out the phase one and then now phase two. But if we got another couple $100,000 in phase two that was left over from the million, plus the 500,000 that we were going to go up to with this, we could. It's conceivable that we could have close to $1 million for a third phase, and as Tim was talking about, and I think that could be well timed, and especially in light of where things are going right now. As you all are aware, the governor has continued, the freeze that we're in right now in our current phases. And what I think we're all very concerned about is multiple things, but we've got the job, the employment, the business piece, but the other part out there, and we started off really working on food insecurity. But what has got my attention, and I know has got your attention and many people as well, is rented eviction protection. The governor has extended eviction protections, but it's critical that we not get people once this eviction protection goes away, and it will eventually, that we don't have a tsunami of individuals that are facing possible evictions because they fell too far behind with their rent. So that's the long way of saying that maybe phase 3 could go toward rent assistance. And we are in the process of deploying several $100,000 with CDBG funds. Recall, if you will, that we received $423,000 of CDBG federal funds. And in talking with Sarah and Brian yesterday, we're working on making sure that we get that out. But I think that we want to make sure that we're in a position to help our neighbors should this go on any further. With that, I see 2 hands up. First, Councilmember Assefa Dawson, and then Council President Honda. Lydia?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for what we're doing. I'm so proud of our city, and I'm proud of you. And Tim, thank you for your tireless hours that you're putting towards this. And Mayor, you actually answered my question pretty much. It is around eviction prevention, and I'm really concerned because that has now been extended, which could mean 6 months plus for all the people who may be behind on their rent. And I'm concerned. And whatever we even have left over, plus CDBG, may not even be sufficient to cover them.
Correct.
And landlords are private landlords, so they're not going to be required to not evict, right? So what can we do to get ahead of that and make sure that people don't take that action on evicting people? So thank you for thinking ahead about the financial, putting the money aside, but I also think we need to find a way or have the conversation around what it is that we can do, what kind of support can we offer the landlords also. By the way, I'm not only talking about the tenants, I'm also talking about the landlords who are out of money at this point. So I don't know what that looks like, but I think it's a conversation to have. So thank you.
Lydia, you're welcome, Lydia. And I think when I was talking with Sarah and Brian about this, and also Tim and the staff here, I really liken this to preparing for a storm, or even, like I said, I use the word tsunami, is that this could get on top of us before we realize, really on top of us in a very quick way. And we just need to make sure that we are ahead of this and doing what we can to make sure that we deploy these funds in the most humane and efficient way possible. And I'm really proud of the work that's being done by Tim and Pam and Marge and Kathy that are here, that are working on getting these letters out. But there's another piece to this, and that's what I want to really emphasize. And we also need to support our nonprofits, and we're working on that as well. So it's a real mix, but it really feels like we're sort of preparing for a storm that's coming. And I think we need to make sure that and I know where your guys' hearts are at. We've got a great council about making sure that we help and protect the most vulnerable in our population. So thank you, Lydia. Okay, Council President Honda, and then Councilmember Russo.
Thank you. So I have a few questions. What does it mean that priority will be given to women-owned and minority businesses?
Tim and I spent a great deal of time talking about that. Tim, can you talk about that and the overall issues?
So one of the key concerns, and it's been recorded, identified by the Federal Reserve for decades that women and minorities suffer considerably in access and availability to capital. And that has been evident by this process going forward. The numbers are coming back showing that they have not had the access to the federal and state programs. So this is an emphasis that we can place on helping them get to, while a small amount of money, get to this money nevertheless. And what we witnessed in the first round was something that I heard you all talk about, and that was making sure that it got to many of the small brick and mortar businesses that were specifically minority women-owned businesses, hair salons, nail salons, barber shops, masseuses, those personal service-based businesses. And we know that we didn't get to all of them based upon the numbers, so that there's still a fairly large size number of businesses that we have in Federal Way that could still apply for this. And many of them are a minority and specifically women-owned businesses.
So if all things being equal, let's say a business that a man owns, if we were to have to decide not to fund someone, it would be businesses like that. We would take the women and the minority-owned businesses first.
That's correct. And also brick and mortar, as we did in the first round. Brick and mortar go first before home-based businesses. And in this particular case,
How many businesses in the first round did not get funding?
everybody got funding that was eligible.
Okay.
Everybody
Correct.
got that was eligible.
And that's actually, yeah, go ahead, Tim. Tim, go ahead.
There was just a few that didn't have business licenses after it was all said and done. And then there was 130 that had received state and federal monies before, and those were not eligible. But everybody got, even with that, we only had 644 total gross applications, well below the 750 that you had approved. So when it was all said and done, we had 514 some odd businesses that will receive funding. But again, well below. So nobody had to go through this process. The key question is that based upon this information, will we see a larger increase than what we did in this first round? Don't know that answer. And we're so far out advanced in our other communities that nobody has done a second round yet. They're all still trying to get through their first round. So we're into a second round.
But in answer to your question, we'll probably have between $200,000 and $300,000 left over from phase one. So, and this gives us authorization to go up to the full 2 million for the two phases. So this agonizing decision, I think you're talking to, we don't see that actually playing out. We actually, everybody who was eligible did receive funding. So I'm with you. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So the money that was not spent in phase one is being rolled into phase two?
Actually, what we're doing is we're holding that's sort of in abeyance right now. Remember, we have up to about 2.5. So we put this really in two barrels, and we've got the phase one at $1 million, and we've got about 300 left over with that. And phase two is about $1 million, and we may have a couple 100,000 left over for that. And we'll combine those money probably, and then with that extra $500,000 from that, that'll take us to 2.5. So if you add that together, you could have close to $1 million for a phase three out of non-deployed monies for phase one and phase two. That's one way of looking at it. But I think actually, yeah, because if you go 300 on each, that's 600 plus another 5, you're looking at 1.1 million if the numbers stay steady. But we still have that flexibility. I think, Susan, to your point is, let's say we get to $1 million on phase two, and we still have money left over. We could use some of that phase one money and bring it in. We have up to $2 million.
Okay.
And that would still leave us $500,000 to deploy for rent assistance and assistance to nonprofits.
So that's my next question is rent assistance. When we met with the governor, he said that he'd been told, maybe, and I could have heard this wrong, that less than 10% of the public was not paying their rent. Is that what you heard?
Well, I heard that. I did. I was right there with you. And
I know.
so, but what I've been also hearing from Sarah and from some other people is that the numbers actually could be quite large. And that actually one of the things that what Sarah said to me yesterday in our phone call with Brian, which alarmed me, which was you could have, the need could be, well over, 1.5 to $2 million of need with regard to people with rent assistance. And that's where I've really been, we want to make sure we put the best foot forward and not be in a position to just watch this happen. We can't have that happen.
Okay, so my question to follow-up question is, I would think that either the federal government or the state government will have some funding to help with rent assistance.
Yes.
And I'm concerned about daycares and the ability for parents who don't have to pay for daycare now because their children are in school. It's not built into their budget. If they're lucky enough to have a job and to need to go to their job and to find someone to watch their children, we very well could see our citizens needing assistance with daycare funding. And daycare is expensive.
It is.
It can be as expensive as rent.
Right.
So I would like to see if there's some way that some of this money could also be helping with daycare expenses, especially with those folks who don't have it in their budget to pay for it because they haven't had to pay for it.
Now, I'm going to say, because I think you're absolutely right, that's a critical piece of the recovery. So are you talking about helping out the daycares themselves to make sure that they don't go by the wayside and we have a shortage of daycares? I want to make sure I understand your point completely.
So I see two problems here. I see daycares that have either lost their business, and I see people who may not be able to afford daycare
Right.
when they need it. So I see two issues there. And I just want that we're thinking about that and that we're coming up with a solution to help families and to help the daycare operations and owners, because if we don't have a daycare, we won't need money to help the family because there won't be a place to send them. But on the other hand, it's expensive, and if it's not in your budget to pay for it, it's going to be really tough.
It is. If people don't, I think a lot of people know just how expensive daycare is. And Sarah, I think I asked for Sarah to be on the line. Sarah, do you have any information about, daycare and any assistance that we're giving to people, or where they can get assistance for daycare?
Good evening there, Farrell and members of the council. I don't have a lot of information on the daycare. It's something that we're watching. We are funding the Boys and Girls Club with a portion of that CDBG funds. They're going to be running an all-day program for school-aged kids of low and moderate income households just for this purpose. And I'll look for other resources and let you know what I find. I know that there are some subsidies that are available and will likely be accessible. We'll want to really be looking for where there's the biggest gap that we can have impact on.
Okay.
Okay, Sarah, let's you and I
appreciate
Sarah. That. Oh, yeah, thank you, Council President. Sarah, let's you and I talk about this tomorrow and really narrow down about assistance for people for daycare, but also to make sure our daycare providers who probably whose business is probably really, well, because of the gathering, we want to make sure they don't fail as well, because you've got the availability of service. Okay, thank you.
They may not be allowed to take as many children as before due to COVID. So and if they can't take as many children, they may not even be able to open. So I can see just so many problems with this. And if we don't have people working, we're not going to recover. We have to get the businesses back working. We have to get people back to work for us to recover from this.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Mayor,
Okay,
if I
Council-
may
Thank
add
you.
something real quickly here too.
Yes, please.
To the council president's point, this has been a concern that I've had. I've shared this with Supervisor Campbell, Superintendent Campbell, and we've had this conversation. And then I've started calling child care businesses. So I hear two items from you, Council President. I hear issues associated with operators, and then I hear concerns with customers. And as I look at those two, one of the things that I saw in the analysis of, as of yesterday, of one of the bills that it's being presented in Congress is the increase amount of dollars for the Paycheck Protection Program. And this is one where earlier on in the process, in early March, if you recall, I made a presentation to you and the council. And I immediately started working with our small business people, trying to get them the Paycheck Protection Program and get them through the application process, working with the Chamber and the Small Business Development Center. If more money is put that direction, we will have, and we do have, really good relationships today with organizations that can help them acquire those funds. So that would help us take a priority to help those businesses and help them sustain themselves. As it pertains then on the flip side of the coin, as it relates to customers, I think that's something that we've been trying to figure out what we can do with what would either be the residual left on this or the money from King County that might be available to assist in a manner to support customers to child care facilities. But you're right, it is a conundrum that we have to address at the local level. And I must admit to you, Council President and council members, I have not found any of my counterparts that are addressing that issue to the level that you've talked about tonight that we must. So it'll be something that I would be engaged with you on to help on that.
Okay, great. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you. Okay, Councilmember Barroso, and then
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Tran. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tim. And thank you for all your hard work. I just had a question in regards to the government mandate closing. So do you know how many in our businesses are closed because of the mandate? It's probably a three-parter here. And if there are, and I know they're going to be in round two, were they approved in round one or in round two, where they be just put in the queue? Is that how it's going to work? If they're still not open by the time the money is available for them?
Let me answer that question immediately. So one of the things that we discovered was this conundrum, this issue. That's the reason why we if they are impacted because of closure, they should not be impacted by receiving funds. So that's the reason why it's been added to the eligibility so that they can have these dollars. Because if they were closed in round one, they couldn't access the money. And we don't think that's right or correct. So that's a correction on the eligibility item.
Okay, thank you. So I was looking for it. Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I can send you and Sarah additional information on the child care subsidy programs. This program managed by the Department of Children, Youth, and Family, DCYF. So I can send that tomorrow when I go back to the office. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilmember Tran. We should have thought to ask that question. It's spot on. Thank you. Okay. I don't see any further hands up. Do we have, Stephanie, do we have any questions, or excuse me, citizen comment?
No, Mayor, we don't have anyone signed up.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay. Council, any other discussions or motions, or what's your pleasure?
I have a
Coun-
motion.
Council President Honda.
Are we ready for the motion?
Yes. Yes.
This could be your fastest meeting ever, Mayor Farrell.
Knock on wood.
I move to authorize staff to implement recommendation and to authorize expenditure of $1 million from the city's general budget and direct staff to take all steps necessary to procure reimbursement through the state for COVID-19 related expenditures.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much, council. And before we go, this will be Councilmember Kopeng's last meeting. Councilmember Kopeng, Mark, would you like to say a few words?
Well, I tell you, I appreciate all the kind words. I really do, and it's kind of a little embarrassing, but I'll take it. I'll take it. There's a show called Life in Pieces, and it's on CBS. I'm not advertising a show, but there's one episode where the father decides, hey, this eulogies that they had at these funerals for my friend were so great. I think I'd like to have my funeral before I die. And so I feel like that a little bit now. But anyway, saying that, I expressed my appreciation to the council and the mayor last week, and it has truly been an honor with you. But I really didn't talk about the staff. I just want to take a minute to just really thank the staff. In the time I've served both on commissions and on council, I have really been impressed with the professionalism and the interest of the staff in doing the right thing for our residents here in Federal Way. On and I could go about just the hard work that they've put in and the dedication that they've exhibited after doing things after hours and doing things from home when they needed to, but really just thinking like customer service was important and that their job didn't end when they left the building. And I really appreciate that level of commitment and care. And I think for our citizens, dealing with City Hall can be challenging, and I understand that, but I hope that you will remember that there is somebody on the other end that wants to find a way to make things work and do the right thing for both the city and for you. So anyway, appreciate the staff very much. And again, I think, the citizens of Federal Way have continued to impress me in so many different ways. And I think that, we are in a very dynamic time right now as a society. And I really appreciate the level of engagement and dialogue that I'm seeing. And, we're protesting peacefully. We have a police department that really cares about the community and is very, very, I think, well engaged in interacting with the community in a positive way. We've got great partnerships with both Lake Haven and South King Fire. There's just so many things that we're doing, I think, well, and there's always going to be room for improvement. But as someone that's stepping back and away from my responsibility, as regretful as that is, obviously I'm looking forward to the next thing. But it's just good to leave the city in a place where, financially we're in tough times, but we're actually in better shape than a lot of the cities around us, and that's wonderful. And I think that really speaks well of the council and our commitment to be fiscally responsible in how we approach things and making tough decisions. Those are paying off now, and there were some tough decisions we had to make. So anyway, thank you to all of you. Thank you to citizens for trusting me for 2 terms, and not a full 2 terms, but just re-electing me. And I think to each one of you council members and to the mayor for all of your support and obviously your kind words. And I definitely look forward to coming back when we're having live meetings again and being part of a meeting in the future. So anyway.
Very good. Well, there's a key with your name on it, so awesome. You have many doors to open. So
yeah, just don't change the locks.
Okay. You have gotten really good with one-liners. I was quoting you about that. I do have to tell everybody, it's been so much fun. And at first I was like, I think I was using Mark's line without proper attribution. And then I made sure I did attribute it. But this COVID thing about, we may not be all in the same boat, but we're certainly all in the same storm. And yeah. I think it's been, it feels like we've been in the same boat, brother. And I just want to say,
Yeah.
Happy sailing and good luck.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we are adjourned, everybody. Thank you so much.
Okay. All
Great job.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
long.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone. Good meeting.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night. Bye.
Bye-bye. Good to see you, Lydia.
Thank you so much, Susan.